Welcome to eDiscovery Leaders Live, where I get a chance to chat with luminaries in eDiscovery and related areas. This broadcast is sponsored by Reveal-Brainspace, the industry's leading AI eDiscovery platform. Don't forget to subscribe to watch me, George Socha, weekly with leaders in eDiscovery. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to eDiscovery Leaders Live, hosted by ACEDS and sponsored by Reveal. I am George Socha, Senior Vice President of Brand Awareness at Reveal. Each Friday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern, I host an episode of eDiscovery Leaders Live where I get the chance to chat with luminaries in eDiscovery and related areas. Past episodes are available on the Reveal website. Go to revealdata.com, select Resources, then select eDiscovery Leaders Live. A note, in 2 weeks, instead of our Friday morning or regular Friday morning episode, we are going to be at ILTACon with episodes, a slew of episodes, Monday through Thursday. Details on that to come. This week, I have with me as my guest someone who has appeared with us before on eDiscovery Leaders Live, but now in a new capacity. It is Toni Millican, who now is a Director of Customer Success at Reveal. Toni previously was the Senior Director of Information Governance and Data Protection for Trinity Industries, the position she held the last time she joined us. She joined Trinity in 2017 to build their eDiscovery program. And she's a certified eDiscovery specialist with over 30 years of legal industry experience, both in the public and private sector, and brings a perspective to legal operation teams, which are from her experience with legal operation teams, which she uses to help ensure the success of our customers in her current position. Toni, welcome.
Thank you. Good to see you again.
Good to see you as well. So I'd like to start, if you could expand a little bit on your background. I gave a brief overview there, but what's your background and ultimately what took you to Reveal?
Sure. So 30 years is a wide span, but I'll try to truncate that into a short bio. I have been working in the legal industry since 1988. And started out as a legal secretary trainee out in Los Angeles, ultimately ending up and spending a majority of my career in downtown Oklahoma City, where I worked for a private practice law firm that specialized in securities fraud litigation, a lot of commercial litigation for the banking industry. And at that time, I really had an opportunity to really take a deep dive into, changes in the way that we actually discovered information, right? At that time, it was a lot of paper, but as, the years progressed and with my ability to be keenly aware of how we needed to change how we were doing things, I took on my own to go ahead and start looking at technology to help support our program. And then we were kind of like forced into it, right? I mean, especially after the Enron case, things changed wide open for litigation and how we did things. And so I had a lot of opportunity to start supporting our law firm. To ultimately, I ended up in corporate and worked in corporate at Chesapeake Energy for several years. And that's when I started in my litigation support role, helping build their litigation support program, and then ultimately ending up over into the IT discovery team. And then ended up in Dallas after a couple of other roles to where I, as you alluded to, I was hired by Trinity Industries to build their program. They had never had a program, and so I had that opportunity to help build it from the ground up, seeing that I had had the ability to leverage technology in different ways in that organization to be able to use our eDiscovery platform as an enterprise tool to be able to govern manage data and also look at different business use cases. That's when I actually advanced into the information governance role. So here I am today at Reveal. And one of the big reasons I left Trinity to come to Reveal had a lot to do with where I was seeing the industry moving and the need to have technology that was supporting the e-discovery practice, but looking at e-discovery not as the traditional investigative or e-discovery litigation, but more beyond that, and looking to help Reveal build out that program to how we deliver the technology to the end users, to the industry, whether it's corporate, private sector, public sector, you name it. There's so many use cases, especially with the AI technology that we have. I also have an awareness of what's needed by those industries because I've been working in here. So I have I'm able to support that. And so I'm very excited to be here. Although I moved to Chicago, which is a little bit of a challenge.
Right. A bit of a change since I think you and I first met while you were at Chesapeake.
That's correct. Yes.
So a bit of a change geographically from then to now.
Absolutely.
You bring with you a wealth of corporate experience as well as law firm experience. And you draw on that for your current role. So I'd like first for you to talk about your current role, what that is, what you do, and then we'll return to that experience.
Sure. So, once we have an opportunity to, our sales team has been able to reach out and acquire a new customer, it's my responsibility to manage the experience of that customer so it's seamless and efficient, so where they have adoption and are using the technology in the best way possible for their program. So what that means is there's an onboarding process where we are very meticulous about making sure there's certain milestones that are met throughout that process, which would include, obviously the setup of their environment, it's smoke testing the environment, making sure all the users can access. Then it obviously...
I'll pause you there. Not everyone may be familiar with the term smoke testing. What does that mean?
Sure. So our goal is to make sure that when the users actually get into the technology, all the functionality is working as expected. So it's up to us to make sure that, we've gone through that quality check, I guess is a better way to phrase that. And then after that, again, it's really important to us to make sure that we're collaborating with the customer so that, there's got to be some transparency there. They feel comfortable to come to me as their advocate. And at the same time, I can feel comfortable to speak to them about what's necessary for them to be successful in building out that program, whether they are corporate to support the business, whether it is an LSP on how, what's their go-to-market strategy and working with, our workflow consultants, et cetera, to help build out what that looks like for them. And then, obviously the law firm too, that's a different use case. But because I've worked in those different roles and also worked with LSPs, it helps me to understand, I can articulate and almost translate to the rest of the Reveal organization as how we're going to support that customer.
So let's look at that. We'll still get back to your experience and expertise, but let's look at that process, if we can, from through the eyes of that new customer who's being brought on board and helped out. What does the process look like to that person?
Well, first, it's scary, right? It can be a really scary process. You've made made an investment, and more than likely you had to pitch it to your executive leadership team on why their choice for Reveal is the best choice for that customer. And then, our role is to make sure that they feel comfortable, because it is going, they're going to have to adopt workflows that are different than what they're doing today. They have to feel comfortable about that process so that once they get that investigation or that business use case in corporate, it could be an M&A, a divestiture, or even just standard litigation, they feel comfortable, because I know for them it's really scary when you're so used to doing things a certain way, and now you're expected to still do your day job, but at the same time incorporate new technology as you move forward. And so we're helping them, doing our best to make them feel comfortable with that process.
What sort of tools might they expect to experience in this process? That they're not just hearing words, right?
Oh, no, absolutely not. No. I mean, obviously there's going to be one, we are in touch with them weekly. We also offer them online training courses, which are really set to reach out to a particular audience. So depending upon their role, we have crafted out on our Brainwaves, our Reveal platform for Brainwaves, which is our online certification program. We have certain modules within that program to help get them started with the tool, to make sure they understand the tool, the technology, and the workflows and the capability of the product. And then they have the ability to get those certifications. Also, we don't leave it to that, right? So we want to make sure that after that training, we've got to create some muscle memory. So now that they understand the product, what it can do, now it's up for us to give them some live training sessions. So we want to make sure that they have hands-on live training, the ability to have Q&A with our workflow consulting team, and then also understand any nuances to their organization to help them build out those new workflows, leveraging the Reveal product. And then after that, we want to make sure long-term they have the support they need. So they have the ability to reach out to our support team after the onboarding process, and then also look to me as an advocate going forward.
Finally, returning to your experience, what about your background is especially useful for you and ultimately for the clients or customers in your customer service, customer support role?
Well, for me, I think really it's that I'm really aware of how to deploy enterprise-wide technology. Number one, I've done it several times throughout my career. It's a challenge. You have to I understand where the challenges they may potentially have or arise with their IT teams. If maybe there's firewall rules that have to be, all of those little technical things that you have to speak to the audience. You have to be able to speak. I can translate from understanding the technical aspects of their deployment within a SaaS environment, as well as the industry requirements for deploying the SaaS environment. In addition, I too have been in a position where I have to be able to demonstrate the return on the investment once we actually purchase and make that subscription. So I'm able to help them build out, whether it's understanding the type of metrics that might be necessary for them to prove and move is my best way of phrasing that, and to make sure that they have adoption of the technology and understand how, the ability to communicate to their leadership and what their needs are going forward. I also feel like, I've been in this industry long enough to see where we're moving. I mean, again, when I said e-discovery is not just e-discovery, the role has changed so much. And I think it's important that we don't lose sight of the fact that with the changes in data, the way that data is delivered to us, there's so much unstructured data out there. It's in so many locations, whether it's in the cloud, whether it's on-prem, whether it's a SaaS provider, that even exposes more risk for organizations. And so because I'm very aware of that in the role that I was in within governance, it's important to me to be able to strategize and make them think a little bit outside the box about how they're doing their deployment and the other ways that they can leverage the tool to help minimize the risk and the exposure of their organization.
Customer success doesn't stop with onboarding and deployment, but continues on afterwards. What does that form of customer success look like?
Sure. So, one of the things that we like to do is whether it's a monthly touch point, but at a minimum, a quarterly touch point. So we want to make sure that we are continuing that relationship with the customer. It's not, okay, you're on board, see you next, see you when it's time for the renewal of your subscription. That's not the way we want to do things here. We want to set ourselves above some of what our other competitors are doing, which is make them know that I'm here to be their advocate long term. I'm here to be the person that that you can use as your escalation point. If you have new people that you're needing to onboard for your to be able to add them to our training program, making sure that I'm managing and keeping an eye on some of the tickets that they're sending to our support team to be sure that they are receiving the level of service that's necessary to make them feel comfortable and that we have a long-term relationship. And it's important to them not to feel like they're forgotten. And I've been in that scenario, right, where once you purchase a product, trying to get any support or for anyone to listen about some of the feature requests, enhancements that they ask for. That's really important. But then we also it's very important to us that we do a quarterly meeting with them to let them know where we see, let them know of any changes that are happening with the product, make sure that we can give them some details about metrics, about how the tool's being used. And give them some ideas about how to obtain more adoption without their organization, or whether it's with the LSP. Maybe working with them on some of their go-to-market strategy. And also, it's important to us to make sure we understand how, are there any use cases for them to work with their data scientists. Potentially they have an idea of where they want to build their own AI models, and we're here to help support that process as well.
You've got, as you said earlier, about 30 years of experience in this industry. You've seen, as I think the State Farm commercial goes, you've seen a thing or two, or a thing or two because you've seen a thing or two. What sort of recent changes have you seen in this industry?
Well, let's talk about what I haven't seen, but what I'm seeing now with what Reveal's doing, because I think it's really hard. From my experience, it's still been very difficult to have the members of a team look at how to leverage the technology to be able to get the insights that they need in real time, or as in real time as possible. They are very stuck in the standard workflow practice of a linear review, which is just you're not going to be able to be effective. We have to make change. And that's one of the reasons I actually came to Reveal, because they are looking that we have to look at doing things differently because it's important. And that's really what's changing. I think people are more open to AI than they ever have before. That's really what I'm seeing. I'm seeing organizations, executive leadership teams, general counsel office realize we cannot, we have to adopt, whether it's TAR 1 or TAR 2, however, 2.0, we have to do that. We can't be stuck in this mindset that we have to look at every document and we have to use the insight that we can from AI technology to be able to keep up with our discovery practice or with our risk management.
So a growth in AI, beginning adoption. What sort of adoption levels have you seen so far? And for that matter, where do you think it will go? But let's start with what you've seen in terms of adoption levels.
So, I've seen where organizations have been able to bring in AI technology to help them with adopting more stringent compliance programs. So before, trying to mine to make, which is, let me take a step back. I think it's anticipated and it's expected that publicly traded corporations are doing the right thing, and they're not putting their nose in the sand and waiting for an issue to arise when it comes to making sure they're supporting diversity programs. There's no bullying. People are not, there's no, with bad actors inside that you are leveraging. If the tools are out there that are available, they're trying to use AI now to make sure they are complying with their governance programs, their compliance programs, retention programs, ensuring that bad actors are not getting access to the wrong data. And then one of the biggest changes, which I really think is what I'd like to see, where organizations move to, is leveraging the technology as we move more into those regulatory changes when it comes to data privacy. I mean, AI is such a valuable tool to help you know where all of that sensitive information is sitting, who has access to it, and how to manage the data more effectively.
Adopting and making effective use of AI can be a daunting prospect. The last week's eDiscovery Leaders Live session was with a couple of folks from TransPerfect, and they talked about their observations of adoption levels. But one of the things I read in between the lines there was that adoption is much more likely to be higher and more rapid if there are folks there helping guide the process, explain the value, put together workflows and the like a function LSPs often perform. Do you think my reading between the lines of what they were saying makes sense?
I mean, I think it makes sense. I think one of the challenges that we need to get through, the hurdles that we have, is organizations understanding that they need to have that internal SME to help guide them through that process. I mean, there's been a lot of attrition during the pandemic. There's been the reduction, whether it's because people are moving on to different roles or just because there's been reduction in force. And they've lost some of those individuals that potentially could have been their SME or their advocate to make sure that they're doing the right thing at the right time to obviously get the right results. But I think that people are taking a step back. I also think that they're realizing that there has to be a strong collaboration between, when you look at a SME, it's not just someone that works in your eDiscovery team. I think that you have to, yes, they're a component of that, but there has to be collaboration across those organizations, specifically when I think of corporate or even the law firm practice. They have to be able to leverage their the expertise of taking a holistic approach rather than working in these silos. I think that what I'm seeing from my experience is this convergence, because overall it's all about the data. It's about managing the data, protecting the data, discovering the data, and being able to identify important information in real time as quickly as you can to get those results. And you can't do that alone. I mean, you can't, you really need some SMEs to help you with that process.
By the end of your time at Trinity Industries, you were focusing on information governance and on data protection.
Yes.
There have been those who have said that eDiscovery technology can be very useful in those arenas. Others who say that no, the eDiscovery people ought to stick to their knitting and focus on eDiscovery and eDiscovery alone. I suspect I know what your response is going to be, but what's your response?
I'd be shocked for someone to say that. I mean, especially when you know you have someone who, an eDiscovery professional, especially someone who's gone through, through the ACEDS program, right? They have learned what is a defensible, repeatable process. They are project managers. They're technologists. They understand the requirement of using people, process, and technology. They're able to, they have a strong experience with working. They're almost like their own LSP at times, right? Selling their service, wherever you are in the field. And so they have the ability to articulate typically a workflow, a process, a need for an organization. And I think it's really important that they are leveraging the eDiscovery professional. But at the same time, I think it's important that we, again, like I said, it's important that they're using the eDiscovery professional. Maybe there's someone in IT that they consider, they're a data scientist. They think they don't need, the eDiscovery, because data scientists, what they do is very niche, but also eDiscovery can help complement what they do for an organization to make sure it's a repeatable process that meets all of the regulatory requirements for the organization.
The nature of what we do and the nature of the roles we hold has changed considerably since you and I got involved in all of this. What sort of opportunities do you see for folks who either are coming into the e-discovery industry or are looking to move on from the e-discovery industry or expand from there? What sort of opportunities do you see for those people?
Well, I mean, if you take a look at what I've done in my career, I'm kind of the model child of what you can do. With when I started working in e-discovery, never in my years did I think I would be running in a Fortune 500 a governance program that was not only managing, how we maintained our records, but also part of the incident response process. So there's a much need to be able to leverage e-discovery professionals within that space. I mean, cyber risk is there. It's happening to everyone. People are getting attacked every day. And so you have to have the ability to build out a workflow that's repeatable, that you can, you have to act and react quickly. And so e-discovery teams, I think, really provide a value add there in that investigative process. There's also, again, we've talked about governance. There's much need for e-discovery professionals in that space to make sure that they can, how do we leverage that technology? Again, sounds like a broken reel, but so true. I mean, you can leverage that technology to help through that process of managing and not only making sure you have the information, but also that you are taking steps to do defensible deletion once it's met those retention, because that also creates risk if you're holding on to information you don't need, right? And then also, I think what I'm finding is that e-discovery planted within the business. They're not just in a legal operations role necessarily, but maybe they're working with the business to help them on some of their practices with whether it's maybe M&A. There might be a reason to mine the data for a divestiture and to be able to have an auditable process. A lot of that's happening now, and so it doesn't have to necessarily just be in the legal department.
So finally, for anyone out there listening to what you've had to say over the last nearly half hour, who is thinking, I'd like to do that, what words of wisdom do you have for those people?
Continue setting goals for yourself. Once you've achieved, you've plateaued, continue to look beyond that. It's achievable. Manifest it. Be aware of what's happening in the industry. Stay in, participate in some of the groups that are out, such as ACEDS. That's a good, Women in E-Discovery, all of these different organizations, and rely on them to help build you, work with your peers. I think that's really important. I think that has really been a reason why I am where I am today. Obviously, for myself, I do take, I'm aware that it's part of my hard work, but at the same time, it's about building those relationships so that when you need someone to reach out to, you have a phone call. Because we are very specialized, and not a lot of people understand how different our role is compared to some other jobs, because we are doing so many things. It's not like you walk into the office, you have one responsibility and you leave. You wear so many hats. But yeah, definitely it's important to just set whatever you set yourself out there to do, you can achieve it within the e-discovery practice. You just have to be able to be open-minded and never stop educating yourself.
Well, on that positive note, thanks, Toni. Toni Millican is a director of customer success at Reveal. I am George Socha. This has been e-Discovery Leaders Live, hosted by ACEDS and sponsored by Reveal. Toni, thanks so much.
Thank you.